My name is David Carter. I serve in the Army, and after a long year away, I was finally coming home for Christmas. The thought of it had carried me through cold nights, endless drills, and days that seemed too long. I kept imagining my mother's smile, my father's strong hug, and my sister Sarah running toward me the moment I stepped through the door. That night, the air was crisp, and snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked up to the front porch. The house stood warmly lit against the winter sky. I could see a faint glow through the curtains. For a moment I smiled. Home, safe, familiar. I pushed the door open, expecting laughter, music, maybe even the smell of roasted chicken or Sarah's favorite apple pie. But what greeted me was silence. The house was quiet, too quiet. I called out, "Mom, Dad, Sarah." My voice echoed faintly against the walls. No answer. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. My bag slid off my shoulder, landing softly on the floor. Something didn't feel right. The hallway looked the same. Family pictures hung neatly, my father's old clock ticking steadily. But when I walked into the living room, my steps slowed. The Christmas tree stood in the corner. Normally, by now, it would be sparkling with ornaments, tinsel, and a shining star on top. But this year, the tree was bare, only the lights plugged in but left unlit. The boxes of decorations sat open nearby, as if someone had started the tradition, but stopped halfway. On the coffee table, a plate of cookies was left untouched, a glass of milk beside it still full, the surface undisturbed. Sarah always ate the cookies before they went stale. She wouldn't just leave them. The dining room told the same story. The table had been set, but the food was cold. Plates of roasted vegetables and bread sat uncovered. The smell of seasoning lingered faintly, but the warmth was gone. Chairs were pulled out, but no one sat there. I stood in the middle of the room, trying to take it all in. My chest grew tight. Where was everyone? Christmas Eve in our house was never quiet. By this time of night, my mother would be fussing about candles, my father telling one of his long stories, Sarah laughing so loudly you could hear her from the street. But now there was only silence, broken by the ticking clock in the hall. I walked upstairs quickly, 2 steps at a time. First, I checked my parents' room, empty. The bed was neatly made, not slept in. Then Sarah's room. Her desk light was still on, a notebook open, but she wasn't there. Every room I checked told the same story. No struggle, no mess. Just absence, like they had vanished without warning. Back downstairs, I stood in the living room again. My heart was racing now. I tried to calm myself, but training couldn't prepare me for this kind of fear. Battlefields, I knew how to handle. Silence like this in my own home, that was something else entirely. Something was off. Something was terribly wrong. I went back to the front door, checking for signs. The lock wasn't broken. The door frame was solid. Nothing seemed forced. Whoever had been here had come in quietly, without leaving a trace. I thought maybe they had gone to visit neighbors. But that didn't explain the half-prepared food, the unfinished decorations. No, this wasn't them leaving by choice. I walked to the dining room again, my eyes scanning every detail. That's when I noticed something out of place, a single sheet of paper folded sitting in the center of the table. For a moment, I just stared at it. That paper didn't belong to the picture of a Christmas meal. It didn't belong to this home. It stood out like a shadow in the light. My steps slowed as I moved toward it. I reached out, my fingers brushing over the folded edge. My name was written across the front. David. The sight of it made me uneasy. This wasn't my family's handwriting. This was sharp, jagged, almost angry. It looked like it had been written with force, as though the pen had cut into the paper. I didn't open it right away. My instincts told me to be careful, to stay alert. The house was still, but the letter in front of me confirmed what I had already feared. This wasn't just an ordinary night. Something had happened here. Something that had left my home frozen, in silence. The warmth I had longed for, the welcome I had imagined, it was gone, replaced by a strange emptiness. I stood there, breathing slowly, my hands steady even as my thoughts raced. I had returned home for Christmas, but this was no celebration. This was the beginning of something else entirely. The folded paper lay in The center of the dining table, my name written across it in uneven strokes. For a moment I just stared. I could feel my heartbeat in my chest, steady but heavy. I reached out and picked it up. The paper felt rough between my fingers as if it had been handled too tightly. Slowly, I unfolded it. The message inside was short, but every word carried weight. "Merry Christmas, David. You came home expecting a warm welcome, but things don't always go the way you plan. Your family is with me now, safe for the moment. If you want to see them again, you'll play along. Follow the clues, let's see how strong you really are." I read it once, then again. My stomach sank lower with every line, my family on kidnapped. I looked around the silent house, the half-prepared food, the bare Christmas tree, the empty rooms. All of it made sense now. They hadn't left by choice. They had been taken. I turned the letter over, checking the back. Nothing, no address, no demands for money, just a challenge. Whoever wrote this wasn't interested in ransom. This was personal. The handwriting pulled at my memory. It wasn't neat, it wasn't rushed either. It had a jagged style, like the letters were cut out of anger. I knew this writing. I had seen it before, years ago. That realization sent a chill through me. This wasn't the work of a stranger. This was someone from my past, someone who knew me well enough to leave a message only I could fully understand. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it into my jacket. My training told me not to lose focus, not to let panic take over. The letter was the first move in a game. If I was going to win, I needed to pay attention to every detail. I scanned the dining room again, looking for what he meant by clues. That's when my eyes stopped on the Christmas tree. The boxes of ornaments were open, but the tree was bare, almost bare. Tucked between the branches was something small, out of place. I stepped closer and pulled it free. It was another piece of paper, folded twice. I opened it and saw a short line written across it. A question. One I recognized immediately. It was from an old exam, the same kind I used to ace without trouble. My hands tightened on the paper. Whoever left this behind wanted me to go back, to remember, to relive moments I thought I had left behind. The letter wasn't lying. This was a game, and it was meant for me alone. I stood there, holding both notes. The house was silent, the air heavy, but I knew one thing clearly now: this wasn't random. This was deliberate, and whoever had taken my family wanted me to follow. I held the two notes in my hands, the bitter letter and the exam question hidden in the Christmas tree. My family was gone, and the silence in the house was heavy. But the more I stared at the handwriting, the more my thoughts pulled me back to a time I thought I had left behind. College. That's where I had seen this writing before. I remembered the papers, the assignments, the scribbled notes passed across desks. I remembered the name attached to them, Alex Morgan. It had been years since I last thought about him, but the memory came back sharp, like a scar you forget until it aches again. Alex and I had been in the same program. We shared most classes. On the surface, we were just classmates, but underneath it was different. He saw me as a rival. I never asked for it. I studied hard. I earned my grades. I stayed focused. For me, college was a step toward my future. For him, it was a constant reminder of where he fell short. Every time grades were posted on the board, my name was near the top. His was often near the bottom. I still remember the day it boiled over. It was our second year. A math exam had been graded and returned. I had scored high, like I usually did. Alex hadn't. He slammed his paper down on the desk so hard that people turned to look. His face was red, his jaw clenched. "Of course," he muttered loud enough for the class to hear. "David gets another perfect score. Always David." I didn't reply. I didn't see the point. But that silence made him angrier. After class, he caught up with me in the hallway. "You think you're better than everyone, don't you?" he said, blocking my path. I shook my head. "No, Alex, Just what?" He cut me off. "Just smarter, just luckier. You don't even try, and you still beat me." I looked at him confused. "I do try. You just don't see it. I study every night. I put the hours in. But he didn't want to hear it. His eyes narrowed. One day you won't be on top. One day you'll know what it feels like to lose. That was Alex. Always bitter, always comparing himself, always chasing something he couldn't catch. I tried to ignore him after that. We had our own paths, our own goals. I assumed time would dull the rivalry, but it didn't. Every semester, every grade, every award or recognition, I could feel his eyes on me. Not with friendship, not even with healthy competition, with resentment. The last time I saw him was on graduation day. Families filled the hall. People were hugging, taking pictures, throwing caps in the air. It was a day of joy for most of us. But not for him. I spotted him standing alone near the back, his gown wrinkled, his cap hanging low. His family wasn't there. He wasn't smiling. He was just staring at me. Our eyes met. For a moment I thought he might come over, say something, maybe even bury the past. But he didn't. He just shook his head, turned, and walked away. That was the end of it, or so I thought. Years passed. I joined the army, trained, served, built a life beyond those classrooms. Alex became nothing more than a name in my memory, a chapter closed, until now. The letter on my dining table, the handwriting, the exam question, it all connected back to him. The bitterness hadn't faded, it had grown. While I moved forward, he had stayed stuck, feeding the anger until it consumed him. And now that anger had reached my doorstep. I set the notes down on the table and rubbed my temples. The memories weren't pleasant, but they explained everything. This wasn't about money. This wasn't random. This was personal. Alex had taken my family. The thought made my blood run cold. For him, this wasn't just revenge. It was the end game of a rivalry I never wanted. I pushed back from the table and stood tall. My past had come back, but I wasn't the same person he remembered. He still thought of me as the student in the, classroom, the one who made him feel small. But I wasn't that boy anymore. I was a soldier now. And if Alex thought he could use old grudges to break me, he was wrong. I slipped the notes into my jacket again and took one last look around the quiet house. The silence wasn't just emptiness anymore. It was a challenge, a warning. The rivalry we left behind in college had returned, but this time the stakes were higher. This time, it wasn't about grades. It was about my family. I sat at the table with both notes in front of me. The first was the bitter letter telling me my family was gone. The second was the exam question tucked inside the Christmas tree. Together, they weren't just a message. They were the beginning of a trail. Alex hadn't just taken my family. He wanted me to follow him. And the only way to do that was through the past we shared. I unfolded the smaller note again. It was a math problem, one I remembered clearly from college. A train leaving at 5 o'clock, traveling at 60 miles per hour. I knew the answer by heart, but it wasn't about solving it. It was about memory. That exam had been held in the old lecture hall on campus, the one with the tall windows and squeaky wooden floors. I knew instantly that was my first destination. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The snow was falling heavier now, soft flakes landing on my shoulders as I walked to the car. My breath clouded in the cold air. The roads were quiet, most families indoors celebrating Christmas Eve. But for me, the night was just beginning. The drive back to campus was strange. It had been years since I had last gone there. The buildings looked the same from the outside. But everything felt heavier, like the memories were waiting for me. When I reached the lecture hall, the doors were locked. I circled around to the side, found a window I knew could be pushed open, and climbed in. The room looked almost exactly as I remembered. Rows of seats, chalkboards still stained faintly with equations, the faint smell of dust. I searched carefully. If Alex wanted me to find something, it would be here. I walked slowly down the aisles, checking under desks, along the chalkboard ledges. My boots echoed softly against the wood. Then I saw it. On the professor's old desk was another folded paper. I picked it up and opened it. Still sharp, Carter. But can you keep up? Go where we studied late into the night. Let's see if you remember. I knew exactly what he meant. The library. Back then, I used to spend hours in the corner of the library, working through problems, highlighting textbooks. Sometimes Alex would sit nearby, pretending to study, but mostly glaring at me when I wasn't looking. That memory made my stomach twist, but there was no time to waste. I left the hall and made my way across campus. The snow crunched beneath my boots and the air bit at my face. The library doors creaked open easily. Inside, it was silent. The lights were dim, but the shelves stretched tall and familiar. I walked straight to the corner where I used to study. The desk was dusty, a thin layer of snow having blown in through a cracked window. But there, taped under the desk, was another note. This one was shorter. You always worked so hard. Too hard. Check the place where you celebrated instead. I froze. The place I celebrated, it could only mean one thing. The diner just outside campus. After every exam, after every victory, I'd go there with friends. We'd order burgers and fries, sometimes milkshakes if we had money left. It was the one spot where the pressure lifted, where I felt free. I drove there quickly, my eyes scanning the streets for anything unusual. The diner was closed for the holiday, but the neon sign buzzed faintly in the window. I parked, stepped out, and forced the door open. The bell above it jingled weakly. Inside, the booths were empty, the smell of old grease still hanging in the air. I moved toward the back, checking tables one by one. Finally, at the booth I used to sit in, I found it, a napkin folded neatly, with writing across it. I unfolded it and read, "Every victory you had reminded me of my failure. Every smile from them was a knife in me. You don't deserve what you have. You never did. If you want your family, go back to where it all began." Where it all began. The words echoed in my mind. For Alex and me, it began on the first day of college, the orientation hall. That was the first time we were placed in the same group, the first time he realized we were in competition. I clenched the napkin in my fist. He was leading me step by step, dragging me through every memory, every place that tied us together. This wasn't just about testing me. It was about forcing me to relive the past he could never let go of. I left the diner and headed for the orientation hall. It was an old building, rarely used now except for special events. The front doors groaned as I pushed them open. Inside, the air was cold, the room wide and empty. I scanned the stage, the seats, the corners. Then I spotted something under the podium, a small box. I picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was another note. "Closer now. Do you feel it, David? You can't escape the past. Meet me where we ended it all." I knew exactly where that was. Graduation hall, the last time. I saw Alex was there. He had stood alone, watching me walk across the stage, my family cheering, while his seat stayed empty. That was the place where, in his mind, everything ended. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. My path was clear. Each clue had pulled me deeper, dragging me from one memory to the next. And now I was heading straight to the final one. But this wasn't just a game anymore, this was a trap, and Alex was waiting. The graduation hall was silent when I stepped inside. My boots echoed against the polished floor, the sound bouncing off the high ceiling. The chairs were stacked against the walls now, the stage bare. It looked nothing like it did years ago on the day of graduation. But for me, that moment replayed, in my head as if it had just happened. My chest tightened. I knew this was it, the end of the trail. I moved carefully down the aisle, my eyes scanning the shadows. That was when I heard it. Slow clapping. The sound came from the stage. I turned sharply, and there he was, Alex. He stepped into the dim light, older now but unmistakable. His hair was shorter, his face thinner, but his eyes, they burned with the same bitterness I remembered from college. He looked at me like I was the reason for every scar in his life. "David," he said, his voice echoing. "The golden boy finally returns." I didn't answer right away. My throat was dry, my fists clenched. Seeing him after all these years was like being pulled backward into time. "You," I finally said. "You took them." He smirked. "Took, no. I borrowed what you never deserved, a family, a future. The kind of life I should have had. I stepped closer, trying to keep my voice steady. Where are they? They're safe, Alex said. For now. But it depends on you. The words sliced through me. My family's lives were hanging on his mood, his twisted game. Alex started pacing slowly across the stage. Do you know what it felt like? Sitting behind you in every class, watching you get every answer right, every award, every handshake, from the professors, while He jabbed his finger into his chest, his voice rising. I was nothing, I studied, I tried. But no matter what, I was always second, always behind you. I stared at him, the weight of his words pressing down. This wasn't just jealousy anymore, it was obsession. You stole my future, Alex spat. Every time they looked at you, they didn't see me. Every time they praised you, they forgot. I existed. And then you got everything else too, a career, respect, a family. His lips curled into a bitter smile. Why should you have it all, David? Why should you win again? I forced myself to breathe slowly. I couldn't lose control. Not now. Alex, listen to me. This isn't the way. If you hurt them, there's no going back. He tilted his head, almost amused. Going back? I never had anything to go back to. For a moment, silence filled the hall. The tension was thick, choking. Then I caught it, movement in the shadows behind the stage curtain. My heart jumped. My family. I saw the outline of my wife, hands tied, her mouth gagged. My son beside her, frightened but alive. My daughter pressed close to them. Relief washed over me for a second, but it vanished just as quickly. Alex noticed my eyes shift. He grinned. Ah, you see them. He stepped aside, letting me see clearly. My family sat on the floor, ropes binding their wrists, fear written across their faces. My wife's eyes locked onto mine, pleading silently. Don't, I whispered, my voice breaking. Don't hurt them. This is between you and me. Oh, it's always been between you and me, Alex said sharply. But they're part of what you stole, so yes, they matter. I clenched my fists tighter, every muscle in my body screaming to move, to fight, to end this. But one wrong step, and he could snap. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. He crouched down near them, running his hand across the rope as if testing its strength. Do you know what it feels like to have nothing, David? To be invisible? To live in the shadow of someone who never even noticed you? His voice trembled with rage. You had everything, and I had scraps. I swallowed hard. My mind raced. I had to keep him talking. I had to buy time. You think I stole your future, I said slowly, carefully. But Alex, your future was yours to fight for. I didn't take it. You gave up on yourself because of me. His eyes flared. He stood, suddenly pointing at me. No, don't twist this. You always had the easy road. People loved you. They wanted you to succeed. Nobody wanted me. The words echoed through the hall. My heart pounded louder with every second. My family's lives were tied to his madness, and the thread was thin, fragile. I took one step forward, my voice low but firm. If you wanted my attention, you have it. I'm here. Face me. Leave them out of this. Alex studied me for a moment, breathing heavily. Then he smirked again, tilting his head. You're still the same. Calm under pressure, always the soldier. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small remote. He held it up between his fingers. You see this? One press, and they're gone. That's how much control I have now. How does it feel, David, to finally be powerless? The sight of it froze me. My family's lives balanced on that small device in his hand. Inside, rage burned, but outside, I forced calm. It feels, I said slowly, like you're more afraid than I ever was. For the first time, his face twitched. A crack in his armor. He wasn't just here to destroy me. He wanted me to admit defeat, to hand over the victory he could never earn himself. And I wasn't going to give him that. I locked my eyes on him, steady and sharp. This ends tonight, Alex, one way or another. The tension was like a rope pulled to its limit, ready to snap. My family's lives hung on every breath, every second, and I knew the moment was coming, the moment where I would have to act. The wada soldier's boots crunched softly against the frosted ground as he followed the trail of clues Alex had left behind. Each location seemed ordinary at first glance: a forgotten warehouse, an abandoned playground, the cracked walls of an old library. But beneath the mundane exterior lay traps, riddles, and dangers meticulously crafted to slow him down. Every step was calculated, every turn a potential ambush. Alex knew him too well. He knew his habits, his reactions, even his instincts. This was no ordinary fight. It was a game of intellect and endurance, a battle of mind and muscle. Inside the first warehouse, the soldier froze. Shadows flickered across the walls from a swinging light above. On the floor, footprints led to a corner, but they stopped abruptly. His trained eyes noticed the subtle differences in the dust, some spots compressed, others slightly disturbed. Then he saw it, a tripwire stretched across the room, almost invisible under the dim light. He crouched, disarmed it carefully, and moved forward, feeling a mix of adrenaline and dread. Alex had made sure every step of the way was a test, and every test was personal. The next clue came in a cryptic note taped to the underside of a steel beam. Where we first argued, truth will guide you. Follow the echoes of the past. Immediately, memories of college days flashed before him. Arguments, betrayals, challenges that had seemed trivial then, but now took on a menacing significance. He knew exactly where to go. By the time he reached the abandoned library, dusk had begun to settle. The air was thick with silence, punctuated only by the creaking of old wood and the occasional rustle of paper in the wind. Inside, the scent of mold and dust made the soldier's nose wrinkle, but he was alert. There, between the tall, empty shelves, Alex had left a puzzle of locked doors, hidden passages, and false trails. Each false move could cost precious time. Or worse, Alex's first attack came not with brute force, but with cunning. A hidden mechanism released a cascade of old books, creating a temporary barrier. It was a simple trick, but it forced the soldier to think fast. He ducked under the falling debris, rolled across the dusty floor, and emerged unscathed. But he knew this was just the beginning. Hours passed in a tense, almost cinematic dance. The soldier moved silently, almost like a ghost, anticipating every trap Alex could set. There were pits covered with fragile wooden boards, ropes rigged. To swing heavy crates and even chemical hazards Alex had somehow managed to engineer, using common supplies. Every obstacle tested his military training, his patience, and his wits. And every time he overcame one, the sense of Alex's presence grew stronger, like a shadow just out of sight, watching, waiting, taunting. Finally, he reached the last location before the family, an old, abandoned factory. The air was thick with fog, and the dim light of a single swinging bulb created elongated, shifting shadows that seemed almost alive. This was the perfect stage for a confrontation. Alex appeared suddenly, stepping from the shadows with that familiar, bitter smile. "You made it," he said, voice calm but edged with menace. "I knew you would. I've been waiting for this, your skills against mine. Let's see who wins, soldier." The soldier's heart pounded, but he stayed focused. He studied Alex carefully, noting his posture, his movements, and the subtle twitch in his right hand. Alex had always been cunning, relying on psychology, more than strength, but the soldier had grown in ways Alex hadn't anticipated. The first clash was mental. Alex hurled riddles, taunts, and lies designed to confuse and distract. "Remember that time you humiliated me in the lab?" The world never noticed, but I did. I've been waiting for the perfect moment to repay that debt. His words cut deep, but the soldier stayed grounded. Every taunt was an attempt to manipulate, to break him emotionally. But years of discipline, of fighting real battles, had forged a mind that could compartmentalize and stay sharp under pressure. Then the physical battle began. Alex lunged with a metal rod swinging with all the pent-up anger and jealousy he had stored for years. The soldier dodged, rolled, and countered. With precise, controlled strikes, movements honed over countless drills and missions. Every punch, block, and kick was strategic, a chess move on a deadly board. But Alex was not just a brute. He was smart, and he had prepared. As they fought, hidden mechanisms triggered alarms, nets dropped from the ceiling, and smoke bombs erupted. In bursts of choking haze, the soldier coughed, waved the smoke away, but didn't lose focus. He realized that Alex's plan wasn't just to attack, it was to exhaust him, to lead him into making one fatal mistake. Hours felt like minutes in this relentless battle. The soldier's mind raced through all his training. Every scenario, every counter, every tactic. He used the environment to his advantage, swinging chains to knock Alex off balance, broken beams as shields, even the reflections in cracked mirrors to anticipate attacks. Every move tested not just his body, but his strategic thinking. At one point, Alex trapped him in a narrow corridor lined with mirrors, trying to confuse him with multiple reflections. The soldier paused, studied the angles, and smiled. He remembered a basic principle from his training. The real enemy doesn't always appear where the eyes see. With a sudden, decisive lunge, he disarmed Alex and forced him back, turning the tables. The final moments were a blur of speed, strategy, and raw emotion. The soldier disarmed Alex completely, pinning him to the floor. "It's over, Alex," he said, voice steady but heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. Alex's eyes, once full of hatred, now betrayed a flicker of fear, of disbelief, that his carefully orchestrated game had been outmatched by the man he underestimated. Breathing heavily, the soldier stepped back, keeping a watchful eye. The room was quiet, except for the ragged sound of their breathing. He realized that Alex's greatest weapon had been his mind, his planning, his jealousy. But in the end, it was the soldier's discipline, focus, and moral resolve that had won. Strength alone could not have defeated Alex. It had been the combination of wits and strength, strategy and skill, patience and courage that tipped the scale. As he moved toward the exit, he knew the battle was not just about physical survival. It was about protecting his family, confronting the darkness of the past, and proving that even the most calculated malice could not triumph over resilience and intelligence. Outside, the fog began to lift, and the faint light of dawn touched the frozen landscape. The soldier's heart, still pounding from the fight, carried a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had survived, he had triumphed, but he also understood something crucial. Battles like these were never just about winning. They were about understanding the enemy, mastering oneself, and protecting those who mattered most. And now, the last step awaited, the final confrontation with his family still in danger. But after this grueling, exhausting, and mentally taxing ordeal, the soldier felt ready. His wits were sharp, his strength intact, and his resolve unbreakable. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with the same combination that had carried him through the battle of wits and strength: courage, intellect, and an unshakable will to protect the ones he loved. The soldier's heart pounded as he approached the last location, the abandoned mill at the edge of town, shrouded in mist and silence. The sun had dipped low, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked wooden floors and rusted machinery. This was it, the place where Alex had led him, where the culmination of months of jealousy, plotting, and anger would finally meet the unbreakable will of a man fighting for his family. Every step felt heavy, echoing through the cavernous interior of the mill. Dust swirled in the dim beams of light that pierced the broken windows. The soldier's senses were on high alert. Every creak, every whisper of wind could signal danger. And then he heard it, a faint whimper from a back room. His family. Relief surged, but he forced himself to stay focused. One wrong move now could cost lives. He entered the room cautiously. There in the corner, his wife, mother, and sister were bound and gagged, fear etched across their faces. The sight hit him like a knife, but he swallowed the fear, the anger, and the panic, channeling them into calm, deliberate action. Then a voice, smooth, cold, familiar, slithered through the shadows. "Welcome," Alex said, stepping out from behind a rusted support beam. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You made it this far, soldier. Impressive. But this is where it ends." The soldier didn't respond with words. Instead, he scanned the room, noting every object, every possible advantage or hazard. Alex was holding a knife loosely in one hand, but his posture was confident, almost arrogant. It was the posture of someone who believed he had already won. "You had everything I ever wanted," Alex continued, his voice dripping with venom. "You were the perfect student, the perfect friend, the perfect man. And I had nothing. But now I take it all from you. Your family, your life, your happiness." The soldier's jaw tightened. He knew Alex had never forgiven the past. Years of resentment had festered like a poison, and now it had taken physical form. But he also knew something else. Alex thrived on fear, on manipulation. He had to stay sharp, calm, and controlled. The first move was subtle. Alex flicked his knife toward the soldier, not to strike immediately, but to test, to provoke, to measure. Reactions. The soldier anticipated, sidestepping with precision, closing the distance, forcing Alex toward the edge of the room. The fight was no longer just physical, it was psychological. Each measured movement, each feint, each glance was a silent conversation of strategy. Alex lunged suddenly, a burst of aggression fueled by years of envy and anger. The soldier deflected the strike, twisting Alex's wrist and sending the knife clattering across the floor. The clang of metal echoed through the mill like a gunshot. For a brief moment, the room seemed frozen in time. The soldier and Alex locked in a battle not just of bodies, but of wills. "You think this ends with you?" Alex spat, eyes blazing. "I've planned this for years. And yet, here you are defeated," the soldier replied, calm but resolute. "Because all your planning couldn't account for courage, love, and discipline." The fight escalated. Alex grabbed a metal rod from the floor, swinging wildly, trying to compensate for his lack of control. The soldier dodged, rolled, and used the momentum against him, disarming him again and pinning him to the ground. Sweat and blood mixed on both their faces, but the soldier remained steady, his eyes never leaving Alex's. Finally, it came. The moment of truth. Alex's breath was ragged, his strength waning, his confidence slipping. You don't understand," he gasped. "I've been nothing my whole life." "Maybe," the soldier said, keeping his voice low and firm. "But you don't have to destroy everything else to feel whole." For a tense few seconds, silence fell over the mill. Then Alex made a final desperate lunge, full of rage and years of pent-up resentment. The soldier sidestepped, grabbed him, and used his weight to pin him firmly. Alex's struggles grew weaker, his breath rapid, the fight finally draining out of him. With Alex immobilized, the soldier quickly freed his family, cutting their bindings with a knife he had retrieved from the floor. Tears streamed down his mother's face. His sister clung to him, and relief flooded his chest like nothing he had ever known. They were safe. Finally, after hours of terror, the nightmare was ending. The soldier stepped back, keeping a wary eye on Alex. He realized the final confrontation was not just about physical dominance. It was about justice. Alex's own bitterness. His obsession with revenge had been his undoing. The soldier had stayed calm, used his intellect, and acted with moral clarity. It was proof that discipline and reason could overcome hatred and envy. "Do you feel better now?" the soldier asked quietly, addressing Alex. Alex said nothing, only breathing heavily, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. The man who had once plotted for years now faced the reality of his own defeat. The soldier signaled to the approaching authorities he had already contacted, ensuring Alex would face justice without further tragedy. Outside, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. Snow sparkled faintly in the early light, serene and untouched by the chaos of the night. The soldier held his family close, feeling their warmth, their life, their love. They had survived. And in that survival, he understood the deeper truth. Revenge might seem satisfying, but true strength lay in protection, in courage, and in the bonds of family. Alex would face consequences. But for the soldier, the fight was over. Not just the physical fight, but the emotional battle against fear, doubt, and the ghosts of the past. Christmas, though scarred by violence, still carried hope. His family was whole, and the darkness that had entered their home had been vanquished. As they stepped outside, snow falling gently around them, the soldier took a deep breath. The night's horrors would linger in memory, but he also knew that courage, love, and resilience had triumphed. He had faced the enemy, fought through the traps, overcome the mental games, and emerged victorious, not just as a soldier, but as a protector, a husband, a father, and a man who refused to let jealousy and hatred dictate his life. In that moment, he realized the most powerful victories were not those won by anger or revenge, but by the steady, unyielding determination to save what truly mattered. And for him, that was his family, safe, alive, and together. After the intense confrontation with Alex, the soldier finally reunites with his family. There's relief, tears, and a quiet moment of togetherness. The home is no longer a place of fear but of love, albeit scarred by the ordeal. The soldier reflects on the entire experience. He realizes that revenge, while tempting, is destructive and often rooted in old wounds and jealousy. True strength and victory come from protecting loved ones, staying disciplined, and confronting challenges with courage and wisdom. The story ends on a bittersweet note. Christmas is no longer perfect, but the family survives together, stronger, and more resilient than before. The shadows of the past may remain, but love and unity prevail. Revenge may satisfy anger, but love and courage protect what truly matters. Stand strong, stay wise, and never let bitterness destroy your life.